Crazy to think we're in week 8 of the college football season. The SEC slate is loaded this weekend with 3 ranked-unranked games, and we get another South Bend between USC and Notre Dame. In all, we get 5 ranked-unranked games with Utah at BYU in the Big 12. Let's welcome in Brad Crawford and Brandon Marcello to tackle a handful of these good games, guys. It is going to be a fun one this weekend. Brandon, I'm going to give you first word on Ole Miss and Georgia. Rebels had a nail-biter against Wazoo as 33-point favorites. Georgia coming back against Auburn. What interests you most about Rebels and Dogs?
Well, I want to see if Georgia's defensive line can get more pressure on the quarterback. I know that you see them, you watch them on film, and you see the linebackers flying around, the safety's able to blitz and maybe get to the quarterback. Let's also keep in mind Auburn this past week's offensive line, not very good. But the reason why I mention this is because Georgia's defensive front has not really been able to tackle ball carriers and the quarterbacks behind the line of scrimmage all that often. In fact, they're on pace right now to have maybe their worst, if not second worst, defensive pressure from the defensive line of the Kirby Smart era. Only 22.2% of their tackles for loss this season have come from that defensive line. That defensive line has only been able to get 6 tackles for loss all season. That's something I think is being lost in the numbers here as Georgia's defense seemingly seems to be getting better, but there is that one issue. For Ole Miss, they've got to be able to run the football. That's going to be the big number one thing here for me. I think Trinidad Chambliss is someone that can be able to manage the game, have an explosive offense downfield. They've put up all kinds of numbers, but they've got to be able to make sure they can run the ball and not turn it over. And this past week, I think it was a matter of just Ole Miss was looking over Washington State. We've seen that under Lane Kiffin previously in the week before they faced Georgia in previous seasons. I think in a lot of ways they were holding a lot of stuff back.
Yeah, Tommy, I mean, for me, Ole Miss has a certain nastiness this season at the line of scrimmage. And to Brandon's point, I think that could give Georgia some issues up front, offensive and defensive lines. Not to mention Trinidad Chambliss and his ability on third down specifically to move the chains with his feet. We've seen several times this season. He did it a couple drives against LSU during that 24-19 win. Move the chains when it's 3rd and 5, 3rd and manageable. And against Georgia, you've got to be able to sustain possessions. We saw, too, in Georgia's only loss to Alabama a few weeks ago, Bama got up in that game by 2 touchdowns. When this Gunnar Stockton-led offense for the Bulldogs has to play from behind, that's when you sort of get Mike Bobo maybe questioning himself or not finding a rhythm as far as the play caller. So it would be in Ole Miss's best interest to try and get ahead early Saturday in Athens. But that said, the Rebels' lone road win this season came at Kentucky. And Sanford Stadium, that ain't Lexington.
49th meeting all time, but just the second top 10 matchup between these two. Remember last year, the Ole Miss won in Oxford 28-10. That was a 6-11 matchup. Let's get to 2 teams that are 5-1. That's going to be Tennessee and Alabama. It's going to be real interesting, guys, because a lot of these handful of games down the road, we talk about a 10-2 SEC team or a 9-3 SEC team. These games will start to matter. Brandon, Vols and Crimson Tide, what should be some of the glaring big storyline topics heading into this game?
I think Alabama's starting to finally figure out that they can hit some of these critical plays, crucial plays down the stretch. I was there for the Missouri game this past weekend, and they converted 2 big 4th downs on their final drive to really kind of ice that game away, including a 4th and 8 pass that went for 29 yards by Ty Simpson, who I believe is not just climbing up the Heisman charts, he might end up being the favorite after a game like this against Tennessee. This is a big opportunity for him to be able to kind of get more on that national map after that Week 1 loss. Alabama's been playing great ever since then. Their defense has been very, very stout, very aggressive. They're forcing turnovers. They're doing a great job, especially in that secondary, in my opinion. And LT Overton is just an absolute monster rushing the passer. I can't tell you how many times he was getting to Mizzou's Bo Peribula and then also getting held up in the process. But for me, Tennessee, what's been really the great thing for them compared to last season is that they're scoring big points in bunches still against very good defenses. Last year, as we saw, they got into the SEC play and they struggled to score. That hasn't necessarily been the case this season. But another thing to consider here is it's a revenge game in a lot of ways. Alabama's on a revenge tour this season, and with them going to Tuscaloosa, I think Tennessee could be in for a big, big rude awakening on the road.
And as far as the playoff race is concerned, look, Tennessee doesn't have a ranked win yet. and there's Oklahoma and Vanderbilt left. So if the Vols lose Saturday to Alabama and then maybe split against the Sooners and Vanderbilt, we're talking about a 9-3 SEC team, fellas, that went 1-3 this season against top 25 competition. So I think this game means more to the Vols inside Bryant-Denny Stadium than it does to Alabama, a team that's already beaten 3 ranked teams, tied with Miami right now for most in college football. Tennessee loses this game, then the Vols almost need to run the table the rest of the way to guarantee a berth.
Both teams had hits to their leading rushers last week. It'll be interesting to see what other wrinkles they have in store coming into this ranked game this week at Bryant-Denny. Let's get to another one. LSU and Vandy, both teams are 5-1. And really, when it comes to LSU, guys, we continue to talk about this offense with Garrett Nussmeier. I had been working with the research team, and this trend still continues. He has 0 games with 300 or more passing yards this season. He had 8 last year. So, Brad, I'm going to give you first word this time. How much confidence do you have in Brian Kelly and this offense to get things going with Nussmeier?
Not a lot in Nashville, and I'm telling you, this is where I think the season starts to capsize for that coaching staff and the Tigers. The right team is favored here this weekend, Vanderbilt side. Judging by what I've seen, Tommy, the last few weeks, LSU has not scored more than 20 points against a single Power 4 team. They've not done a good job protecting Garrett Nussmeier. We know he's been banged up with a rib situation and then a knee injury during fall camp. He's not moving all that well this season, hasn't shown a ton of zip on his throws, and LSU's run game has struggled a bit. The rest of the schedule, you see it there. I think it's a matter of time before this boat sinks on Brian Kelly, and it's going to start taking on water this weekend with a loss to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, 3 straight ranked opponents coming up, including Vanderbilt, and this is not even the toughest one. They've still got Texas A&M, which might actually be the best team in the SEC, and then Alabama that, as I said, is on a revenge tour and is getting better every week, week to week. Until Garrett Nussmeier can just prove something that he hasn't been able to prove all season, I don't have much confidence against LSU, against any ranked team for that matter in the top 25. I think LSU at this point is very overrated. The offense can't do anything. If that defense didn't look night and day better compared to what it was last year, where it was almost historically bad, to where now they're like a top 10 defense, LSU could be talking about Brian Kelly on the hot seat, and hey, maybe we'll even get there at this point with the back half of the schedule so difficult.
Just to button up with Nussmeier, we saw on the graphic there, guys, 2-4 as a starter against ranked teams, 13-1 against unranked. Brandon Marcello and Brad Crawford, guys, certainly appreciate it. Check out the College Football Insiders. Brandon spearheading that front. And the QR code, they'll be talking about what we talked about. In addition, USC and Notre Dame and all the other big games in the college football slate.